Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic, host of Bachelor Nation News. Probably our last video before tonight's live stream before the episode, the part 2 finale of Clayton Echard's season of The Bachelor. We've got Demi just slamming Clayton, talking about how he was brainwashing and manipulating the women. We're going to get into that video. We have several different things to cover, but stick around. That'll be the second half of this video. It's a fascinating conversation. I've got literally ships of grace I'm bringing in for Demi right now. No hate. I would love it if we didn't show any hate in the comments section, but let's just listen to what she has to say. Wouldn't that be nice? Having some empathy. Now, Oliver, I wanted to talk about Oliver because a good friend of ours, Oliver here, left a few comments that it's almost quicker for me to respond than to type it out. Another great point that Nick says is that Matt James is an example of a lead being very deliberate, and he had even less experience than Clayton. And of course, this is in response to Blake Horstman saying that the people that have the most empathy are usually the finalists because they've been in that situation before. They've already been in the fantasy suite, so they understand they're better leads, which probably statistically may be the case, but it doesn't mean Oliver is wrong. Matt James had never even been on the show, and he had boatloads of empathy. He only told one woman he loved her, this, that, and the other. So it can happen. There's no set standards here in Bachelor Nation and in life in general. No set standards whatsoever. Some people like Matt James exist and can do a good job of knowing their boundaries, but then others have criticized Matt James for when people open up to him, he says like, oh, thank you so much. Like they criticize his responses. Oliver goes on to say, some people are more considerate, better at empathizing with others and not taking advantage of situations they are put in. Some people weaponize that, but some take the time to put themselves in their partner's shoes. That does not seem to register with Dave or Clayton. I think what's not registering, or the disconnect that Oliver and I have here, and by the way, I think I've got receipts and a track record to show my empathy for people that no one else is empathizing with, the likes of Shanae and Queen Victoria's and understanding villains and things like that. But I don't believe Clayton is weaponizing. When you say weaponizing, to me, when you say some say weaponizing, that is an intention. I don't think Clayton has that intention to act that way. I would almost say it's more like blissful ignorance. It could be narcissistic for somebody to only worry about themselves, but the show is called The Bachelor, not a group of people dating in a yurt. All right, it's called The Bachelor. He's the center of the show. It's about him finding love. That doesn't mean it's not about finding shared love. That just means that's the show. Could he have done a better job? Absolutely. But what I don't like, Oliver, quite frankly, and what I told you before, and again, this isn't me finger wagging at you because I don't know who you are, but I do appreciate your voicemails that you left. I didn't know that was the same person. I guess that was finger wagging. But what I don't like, and you're doing a better job here, is like you're coming at this in a very negative way with some of your comments. Not so much here. I've only had to say this to several people where I'm like, I don't want to block you. I like having these conversations, but like I get a lot of messages, right? We've had over 100,000 views the last 5 or 6 business days. That's amazing. That's incredible. That's like 20 stadiums of Yankees stadiums full. I can't possibly respond to everybody, but I want to use you as an example here just to be like, you got to come at this with empathy. If you want him to have empathy for others, you have to have empathy for him and people that you're communicating with, whether it's me or someone in the comment section. You have to, because we just can't do this. And your voicemail sounded way more empathetic than your comments, so I could be possibly reading into it, but I'm making this as an example before we move forward here. That I don't enjoy when you'll try to like conflate what's being said. We speak a lot, and I'm very happy to reiterate my opinions. You said you love Nick's take on this. Very well. I completely agree with him. He brings up fantastic points. Crazy people are thinking like Dave still, even after seeing the mess Clayton caused. You bring up that Nick hooked up with Caitlyn on her season. Nick was a contestant, dude. As a contestant, he was pursuing one person, the lead. As a lead, there's a huge power shift with which Nick also talks about. You honestly don't see the difference. That's conflating because I do see the difference. But my point being is that Nick still can't talk about understanding his position of power when he's also been, Nick's been on all sides. He's been on Bachelor, Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise. Nick hooked up with her hoping he was the only one that Caitlyn hooked up with. The implied contract of the fantasy suite is not and has never been sex for certain. You are so naive to think fantasy suite equals sex. Again, fantasy suite doesn't mean sex, and it doesn't mean everyone's going to be okay with sex, but fantasy suite is the only alone time you're getting. I think you're naive to not even you don't have to, they don't have to be equal. They have to be similar. Okay. So fantasy suite doesn't mean it gives everyone a right to have sex, but it means that's where things go down. Let's talk about it. I also don't value the proposals like a real one. Because as we mentioned, I think through your voicemail, and you have to give me grace, man. You know, I've responded to 150 voicemails yesterday. I think yours was one of the last ones I got to. But because you go, the question people have is why the proposal is not, you don't want to be hooking up with someone else right before your proposal. And I agree. I just don't think these proposals should be treated as real proposals. When I got down and proposed to my girlfriend, that's different than someone who met someone 14 days ago. I'm sorry, it's different, right? I think we can agree on that. Hey, we'll take agreements. Agreements are good, Oliver, right? We don't have to agree on everything. So anyway, it's so damaging to try to start a lifelong relationship. Yeah, no, the show is damaging. It's not a thing of semantics at all, in my opinion. You make it clear you think it's okay to sleep with and say you love multiple women, leading to what hopes to be a lifelong relationship. It's cut and dry. My response to that is that's not what I believe. And that's a conflation of a lot of different conversations we're having. I think it was bad for him to say he loved them. And I think if he could do it again, he would have kept his mouth shut there. I didn't understand why you tried to say about Nick's privilege. Just learned that it's not okay to have done what Clayton did. Thanks for the shout out. I left the voicemail, but also I don't have a whiny voice like you gave me. And I have never said Clayton is a narcissist or whatever. I don't think he's the worst person, but he did mess things up. Wish you would just see that instead of defending his bad actions. Here's where we differ, Oliver. You think that by me talking about his actions, it's defending them. And I'll take that to the grave. I think Clayton could have done a much better job of not telling the women he loved them, because that's kind of like the be all end all usually for the show. At least it has been in the past. If you say I love you, it's like, whoa, my gosh, this must be the one. You know, it increases their odds of being the one. Where in this case, if he said it to all three of them, 2 out of the 3 at least will be heartbroken. So I disagree with your sort of boiling down what my points of view are. I don't think you're new to the channel, but if you're not new to the channel, you know we have these conversations. It'd be much easier for everyone to be like, Clayton was in the wrong. But wouldn't it have been nice for someone like Claire last night to be like, you know what? Clayton came off wrong, but it is a hellfire. It is a really tough scenario. The producers are pushing him to be one way. They're pushing him to be someone. Wouldn't that be nice if we had that type of conversation, which they're not going to do? All right, so let's get into Demi. Oliver, I respect and appreciate your comments and voicemails. Absolutely. But if I'm short with you on my end with a comment, it's because I can't have the one-on-one. I try my best. And this is like to give you my response in this video. It's the best I can do right now. But by all means, call in voicemail later and we can continue talking. But again, I refute what you're saying, that I'm just defending Clayton. He did nothing wrong. Clayton's fine. No, he could have handled it way better. My point being, they picked a guy who had never been in any of these experiences before. They probably did interviews to understand he was going to be a people pleaser and all these other things. And then they pushed him to not, so let's just agree that it's a situation that Clayton started a wildfire, but the producers gave him a bunch of twigs and some gasoline. All right, let's go to Demi. Where is the trigger warning? Says Demi, let's just have a listen.
Everything that we went through, she just completely destroyed me. I made this man. Listen, I'm sorry. I know from the beginning of this, you told me that this is what you were afraid.
So then Demi says, this is, and by the way, again, Oliver, I'm not using you to point you out, but you're the single person in this video that we'll be talking to. Everyone on the channel. It's important that we look at someone like Demi and just listen to what she has to say. She just came out as neurodiverse. She just found out she's neurodiverse. Am I saying that right? Neurodivergent. Shout out to my friends out there. She just said she's neurodivergent. She found out she did plenty of tests with experts. Found out she's on the autism spectrum, and she's struggling to communicate that. And doing a great job. She's doing a great job of using her story as an example for like that her brain works differently, and that's okay. With that said, a lot of what she shares here, let's just understand how they're feeling, and we can use it as a place to discuss and not hate. She says, this is why I want all men to be required to undergo psychological evaluations and therapy, require brain scans, require treatment, repent, let women be in charge. Okay, well, that's an aggressive way to start her thread.
Right.
And then here's where it gets a little messy because there's just a lot going on here. I'm so tired of men getting away with this all day, every day, particularly white men or men in power, which are, you guessed it, usually white. With regards to Clayton, I don't believe he's getting away with anything. I think he's being treated as harshly, if not more harshly, than any lead that's been around, because I think it's the most heightened we've had social media as far as the parasocial conversations go between fans and leads. Okay, let me just zoom in here. Used to comment on an action perceived as foolish or stupid. Oh, so the guy said, duh. Why do you need to speak to someone with intent to make them feel stupid, was Demi's response, which I totally agree. That's rude for someone to be like, I mean, duh. And then Demi says, you and Clayton have some toxic internalized misogyny to confront immediately. Clayton's gaslighting, the emotional abuse displayed, the way he twisted it all and got Susie so confused. That is brainwashing and manipulation. Brainwashing and manipulation would probably have to come with intent. I am not an expert, but we spoke with Dr. Diane Strakowski along with other mental health professionals that say what Clayton was doing was not gaslighting. I'm going to go with the expert opinion on this, although I do appreciate whatever the term is. It was ugly. I think they said blame shifting probably would have been better. Like he was kind of like shifting, like jockeying to be the victim. If you're ever in a fight with someone and it's a battle to see who's more of a victim, get out of the fight. Conversation's over. Take a walk the dog, rub one out, do whatever you got to do. Just get out of that fight. It's a pissing match. And know when you're in a pissing match and get out. So here's the awesome part. I will forgive you and love you if you acknowledge your misogyny and change everything about the way you think, act towards women and minorities. So listen, I can speak on this as a white guy. Let me mansplain this to you guys. Women and minorities and you don't have to walk delicately around white men. You don't have to do that. Now you might trigger some. You might. But that doesn't mean you have to. You can be as assertive and powerful in your statements as possible. People like that, like this guy, are probably going to react in a bad way to it. That's fine. Show people their true colors. Absolutely. Don't hate it. So Demi, do you call it how you want to call it? They are taught this behavior from their fathers, and their fathers are taught from their fathers. Well, here is your wake-up call. No more excuses. Hold your boys accountable. We are seeing through your vicious, selfish act, and the manipulation is a huge turnoff. This is a perfect example of sexism in America. I think she's referring to this guy specifically. I don't think it's productive, though, to say, like, I'm not one of those, like, all lives matters. Not whatsoever. You know what I mean? Huge eye roll. I just think she loses... you'll lose the argument if you say all men are this way. You know what I mean? You'll lose the argument. But sometimes that's what you need to do. Sometimes you need a strong PR campaign of shock jock attention, and you'll get your point across. So to say it's productive or not is up to the end user. She said, I have been screaming about these men on social media for the past 3 months. So with respect, this is where guys, you don't need to be like, man, Demi, look, she's talking about these trolls that come into her account, right? When I talk about I hate these men, I'm talking about the men who are manipulative. Clayton gaslit her because he was scared she was going to leave him, so he attempted to make her more insecure. Men have done this to me my entire life. Men have done this to women since the invasion of the white men on American soil. And we'll get to your comments in a second. My point being, I'm a woman in America and I have no rights because men like this are in power. Men like this are manipulating and confusing women to thinking we are equal. This is a white man. I can't make this up. You're probably right as some of the stuff you are preaching. I can't say you are not, but to say you have no rights, I think you lack perspective in a big way. The obstacles you face as a woman are the ones you allow to hold you back. First of all, why the hell is Sean, why respond to this, first of all? You know what I mean? It's like we're all wasting time.
That was the first thing, and then your eyes.
I'm glad that's the first impression. Oh, he's tall. He's got that going for him. He's tall.
We might lose this thread here. This is triggering. I hate this patronizing way of talking to women. If you disagree, you probably are guilty of this belittling. I personally think that she put people in a weird position here to say, this is triggering. If you disagree, you probably belittling. That's kind of a tough, it's hard to argue. And of course, this might be, so what she's referring to is when Clayton's family asked, is this Rachel, what she felt when she first got out of the limo. So I don't know why the video's not playing, but she said the first thing I saw was that he was tall.
In your eyes.
I'm glad that's the first impression. Oh,
And then he laughs and he goes, oh, that was your first impression? So Demi's accusing him of belittling her. He's talking like she's stupid, like all her little brain could think of was, wow, man tall. He's making fun of her, and after his previous behavior, we have seen, I don't think he's being charming here. Well, I would probably completely disagree with Demi here. I think he's making light in front of his family. Oh, the first thing you noticed was my height? You know, it's like, yeah, joke. Total joke. Didn't see it any other way.
I'm glad that's the first impression. Oh, he's tall. He's got that going for him. He's tall.
All right, moving along. All right, she said it's 2022 and states are trying to make laws on women's bodies. Don't tell me I have equal rights. Well, okay, she's right. She's absolutely right. And I'm glad people are fighting loud for women's rights. Absolutely. She said women have no rights, and now the conversation is about equal rights. So these are just different conversations here. But hey, good place to be. So she says a few things that's not important about this, and then here's a response to the other person who said, you're probably right, is such a privilege and display of deceptive language and showing a complete lack of understanding and openness to the truths of being a woman in today's society. Have there been improvements in the past 20 years? I would say some. But what's missed is the understanding that psychological, physical, and societal warfare continues to assault today's women. From the dawn of time, men have used these psychological forms of manipulation to assert control. What's worse is that they've also used financial deprivation and systemic limitations to also control women. You might remember my conversation with Blake Moynes' mom, Emily Moynes, and she talked about the financial control that her ex-husband had on her when she wasn't working. Obviously, the old school idea of men being the breadwinners and women stay at home would lead in plenty of cases to financial control. Absolutely. From the dawn of time, men have used these terms. Okay, so many men are trying to grow in their perspective, and that's beautiful. But a large percentage aren't and see it as a blow to their ego when a strong, independent woman speaks out. So good for you for actively keeping the conversation going. And I think it is good that Demi's keeping the conversation going. My only question, and it's not a criticism, is a question, is using the platitudes or the absolutes. Women have no rights. Men are manipulating. Using those absolutes, I just wonder if it's putting up people's walls to not hear the message, you know? And that's a greater problem we have, like, politically, where it's like, if you're on that side, then you think everyone's X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, how do we negotiate then? How do we get everybody on the same page? Through enlightenment, through conversation. I will say this. I'm a huge fan of Demi. When her tweets came out, when her Confederate flag jacket came out, and she said, I'm so stupid, I couldn't imagine it, I believe her. I believe her own ignorance. She grew up in a home where her mom was in prison. She's from a lower middle-class family or poor family. I believe her. She, I would say, could use the same tools she's used to survive to understand that other people might not know their privilege, might not know their misogyny, might not know their manipulation. She did what she had to do to grow and to learn, and hopefully others can do the same. But by all means, I'd rather have this Demi than closed mouth, not going to say anything Demi. I think this is more productive than it is not. I'm filled with hate for the way men are treating women. Someone says, I don't understand why you're so filled with hate. And then someone said, he was trying to be funny, calm down, bro, which I don't like the calm down, bro. Again, I'm not here to adjudicate all this. I'm just giving my opinion. But Demi responds, at her expense, his comment would have made me feel stupid embarrassed. She was trying to make a good impression on his family, and he made her sound shallow. I don't think Clayton made Rachel seem shallow. I don't think that was the case at all. I think that's a reach. Don't be like this, girls. You're reading way too much into this reality show, one in which you went on to competing for a gay man, might I add. Well, he was closeted. And he has a point in this day and age. Women have way more rights than we once did. So to say we have no rights is a blatant lie. Yeah, and I wouldn't call it a lie so much as like, obviously, there's been lots of improvements, but it's good to have people that want to keep pushing for full equality. And then let's wrap it up.
I have to go. Thanks for tuning in to my
Mom's trying to act all cool because we're going on
Fury and Rage. Thanks for listening. Thanks for reading.
Okay, so the video just went out, but she says, thanks for listening to my fury and rage. And there's Demi. She has a strong opinion about Clayton. We'll see if it changes. Either way, that's why we watch the show, because people watch it with different opinions, from Oliver to Demi and everyone else in between. We respect and like to hear what other people have to say about it. That's why we watch the show. And let me know what you guys think. I remind you to keep it kind in the comment section. That's what we need to do. We'll be doing a live stream 1 hour before tonight's episode, and then right after, 4 hours after episode live, if my voice can make it. That's 10 p.m. East Coast, and then Central, Mountain, and Pacific time zone all night long. We'll be going live. So do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. You can donate a little bread in the tip jar, patreon.com/Dave Neal, and we'll see you guys later on. Bye, guys.